I guess it's always been just satisfying, and once I started making things, I definitely knew that that's the direction I wanted to go.
How did you decide that what you want to do with your life is making things out of wood?
Yeah, I don't know. I think about that a lot, actually, and I can never really come up with a good reason. I feel like it happened really organically. It was just one thing kind of led to the next. Like, I started in more like construction, 2x4s and screws and building sets at a theme park. And then I guess from there I just really enjoyed the process of just using my hands to take raw materials to something that is impressive or like is a full project. I don't know, for me it's always been really satisfying just to make something. Like, all I'm spending is time basically, and then at the end of the project I have this thing that just kind of popped up out of nowhere. And that's always been the most interesting part about woodworking to me, is like there's a billion steps that you take and no one step seems like, okay, this is it, this is where it really comes together. But then there's just at one point it kind of just like, whoa, like where did this piece of furniture come from? So I don't know, I guess it's always been just satisfying, and once I started making things, I definitely knew that that's the direction I wanted to go. At first I was unsure of, okay, I'll do woodworking, maybe I'll build decks. And then I was like, okay, I don't want to do so much construction. I want to keep the company small, so maybe like small furniture, and I don't know, things just kind of snowballed and I ended up here. The log, and then when you pull it back up like this, it lifts the log. And then the winch is attached here, so you just click the winch and it pulls the log all the way up the hill without like destroying the ground. And
I think it's amazing that you go from having a tree and a log or however you end up getting the wood to a product. So how does that start for you? At what point of the process do you know what you're going to do? How do you go from having a log or a tree, and when do you get to the idea of what's going to be, and how do you arrive there?
Yeah, that's interesting. So I originally bought the sawmill because once I first got into woodworking and I went to the lumber store for the first time and actually wanted to like buy nice lumber as opposed to just like 2x4s from the home store, and I saw the prices of lumber, I was like, I'll never be able to buy enough lumber even for one project. Nice lumber is just really expensive. So that's kind of what got me interested in sawmilling, just so that I would have more material and I didn't have to pay for nice hardwood. I could just, logs are free. Logs are trash. If you see a log in somebody's yard, they just want it gone. They don't have any use for it. So it's so easy to get free logs. And then if you cut up the logs, you just get the most unique lumber. So that's really where I come in with the creative part, is after all that's done, because you just can't believe how beautiful a log is until you cut it open. And then once you see these slabs and this grain, the tree almost tells you what it wants to be. Like, the shape of the slab is always usually what gives me the idea of what I want to turn that furniture into. I don't really know what I want to make until I see the wood, and I don't know, it kind of shows me what it can be, like you just see the shape of it, see the way the grain goes, and you're like, oh, this would be perfect as like a tabletop, or like, oh, this as the front of a drawer would be so beautiful. So it's really like I'm super inspired by the natural part of it all the time. Just seeing the wood and seeing the natural grain is really what inspires me, like to turn that into something, to make a showcase for the wood to show off. That's what I try to do with my furniture, is just keep it simple enough to just show off the wood, the grain. So in here, since it's temperature control and like the dehumidifier is always running, it does really well in drying out the wood. So if you cut wood and stack it outside, it would take like a year or 2 years or more to dry. But in here, since I don't have rain and it's constantly pulling moisture out of the air, this stuff has been stacked for about 6 months and it's already dry.
I think it's really cool that you don't use nails and screws in your projects. what kind of brought you to the decision to break away from that, and how does that work, and what does that change in making furniture without those things?
Yeah. Wow. It's definitely so difficult. Screws is by far the easiest way. There's no prep work involved. That's why people build houses with screws, because you get a big shipment of 2x4s and you just line them up and screw them in, and it's easy that way. But 50 years down the road, if there's screws in a piece of furniture, there's always going to be problems with it. Wood is always growing and shrinking, and that's just putting stress on. A screw is just one little point of pressure in a piece of furniture, so it doesn't take much to make that fail. But with traditional joinery and mortise and tenons and dovetails, it's like they've been making the furniture this way for hundreds of years, and so it's just like tried and true. These joints are way stronger, and it is so much work to master that stuff. I mean, like woodworkers before, they would start as an apprentice as a child, and it would take 40 years or more to really become a master of woodworking, because I mean it's really complicated. There's so much to it. But now, like, it seems really easy. Like, it seems like you could just go to the store, pick up some 2x4s, screw them together into a table, right. and like, why would I go to IKEA or whatever when I can just build my own stuff? But in the long term, that's never gonna be a really sturdy, long-lasting, like heirloom quality piece. And it's just kind of, I don't know, there's something about only using wood when there's a piece of furniture that's solid and you put pressure on it and it doesn't move, the legs don't move, and there's no screws in there, that you just know then that a lot of planning went into it before anybody ever touched a piece of wood.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of what I appreciate about it. It makes you really think about the process of it all coming together and lasting a really long time, and you have to take into account the movement of the wood over the seasons and just the wear and tear of furniture. Like, furniture tables take a lot of wear and tear, especially in like family houses and stuff. So
right. When
you do something with joinery as opposed to just screwing it all together or nailing it together, you have to plan for those things. So that's just why I prefer it, I think, because you have to think of everything ahead of time.
Do you have a favorite part of the process, or like, are there parts of the process that like, this is the process that I want to do to relax, or this is the process that I do when I'm feeling a certain way or something, or is there a favorite part of the process that sticks out to you?
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing I probably look forward to the most is milling the logs. I mean, there's just nothing like getting this nasty, ugly log. Like, logs aren't pretty, and it's just all you see is the bark, and you put it on the mill and you're like, hopefully I'll get some at least solid lumber out of this thing. It's like, every time guaranteed you slice into it, and it just blows your mind how beautiful it is and what's hidden on the inside of every log. It's just such a rewarding process. So I really look forward to that. As far as the woodworking, there's a lot of processes that I don't look forward to. People always complain about sanding because you got to do a lot of sanding.
Right.
And so, like, that's one thing that people don't look forward to more. But with those types of tasks that I feel myself like dreading,
yeah,
I kind of just always am trying to find ways in my mind to like make them more satisfying. A lot of it, not all of it, but a lot of it is just kind of mindless labor. Like, your hands are working, but your mind's not really doing anything. So
right.
It's a great time to like listen to music or podcast, or like, I mean, a lot of times I'll just be in here in silence, let my mind wander, and it's just, there's something therapeutic about like your body doing something, and you don't really have to think about it though. Your mind can kind of just wander. Even the parts that I don't look forward to, like, sanding or like chopping with a chisel for hours, you can still make it enjoyable, I think. It's all about your perspective. If you're looking at it as like, I get to do this. I get to come into my own workshop every day and basically play with pieces of trees. Like, that's my job. And a lot of times, because it's so much work physically and and because it's my own business, and like mentally it's constantly like I'm thinking about what I have to do with as far as finances and filing and all that stuff that comes along with business. It can get really stressful sometimes, but you know, I just try to keep a good perspective on it and realize like I get to do this. This is a great opportunity. I've worked really hard to get to where I am, and you know, as long as I try not to forget that stuff, usually I can, the day-to-day ends up being wonderful, really enjoyable. Like sharpening all my chisels and stuff, so this is like the perfect height for all the sharpening I have to do.
And you were talking about sanding. The surfaces on his stuff, it's like, I can't even explain how smooth and just like
glass.
Yeah, like glass. Yeah, really. Like you just want to like rub it up against your face and like take a nap on it. Like it's so, and like you can tell in pictures and videos of it and stuff like that, it's smooth, but you can't really experience how smooth it is until you're like, oh, I did not expect that. Like every time it blows my mind.
Yeah, we've talked about multiple times that I wish there was a touch feature on Instagram, like just so people could kind of feel, you know, you feel a lot of furniture, humans, I guess, we feel a lot of furniture in our life, and most of it is not sanded well. So when you feel a piece of furniture that's really, you take the time to sand it well, make sure there's not a single imperfection on the surface. And when you feel that, I mean, it's just, you just want to keep feeling it. You just can't take your hands off it. That's always something that drives me, like, especially because in order to get that kind of surface, I use sandpaper. I start at like, you know, let's say 80 grit or 120 grit. I go all the way to 12,000 grit. So, I mean, it's a lot of different grits, and you're basically sanding the same thing the exact same way 15 times to get to that grit.
Right.
So it can get really time intensive, but it's really rewarding to see each grit. It gets a little bit smoother. Each grit, the edges get a little bit more rounded, and just everything gets a little bit cleaner with each grit that you move up. And if you look at it like kind of big picture like that, it's really satisfying.
Yeah.
It's like I definitely have no problems just spending 2 days sanding one piece of furniture because the end result is so worth it.